So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take, Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, we've arrived at the end of the NBA's regular season, so now the real fun is about to begin, with the play-in tournament up first, and then the big dance right after that. So we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real-money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 to 6 players and guess if they will hit more or less than their projection. And if you get it right, you can win. Plus, with their new Demons and Goblins lines, you can now win up to 100 times your original entry. Obviously, we're all basketball fans here, but PrizePicks has almost every sport you can think of available to choose from and play. To add to the fun, they also offer frequent bonuses, discounts, and weekly promotions, such as Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus so many more specialty free spaces to watch for throughout the year, so you don't want to miss those. For today's slate of games, I'm going with Joel Embiid to score over 30.5 points, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to score over 26.5 points, and Cam Thomas to dish out over 3.5 assists in this week's entry. To sign up, go down to the link in the description of this video and use promo code reference when you sign up to get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from A, and he says that the Miami Heat are still the dark horses for this year's postseason and should once again be able to pull off an unprecedented run to the conference finals. The Miami Heat, pretty much every year, try their hardest to write themselves off in the regular season. Over the last 5 years, the Miami Heat cycle has, for the most part, except for one year where they did get the 1 seed, gone from them making a deep playoff run to then entering the next season with a ton of hype. They then would usually underperform and kill off all of that hype that they came in with as a result of it in the regular season. Just when you would start to write them off, though, as contenders, they would wake up in April and do it all over again. This season has followed that cycle pretty much to a T, and with the regular season about to end, they are locked into the play-in tournament in 8th place in the Eastern Conference and have a big uphill climb to even reach their spot in the playoffs, let alone make a deep run. Nothing they've done this year has inspired much confidence in their chances to make noise. They're in the bottom third of the NBA rankings offensively, and there are still more unanswered questions about this squad regarding rotations and roles. And yet, I still feel as though it's foolish to write them off. Last season, the Heat had even worse offensive struggles in the regular season and managed to go from the play-in tournament to the NBA Finals. And while every season presents new challenges, Jimmy Butler is one of the few players that have earned the benefit of the doubt for playoff basketball, regardless of the form that he comes in with. Throughout almost his entire tenure with Miami, he has taken his game to another level when the playoffs have rolled around, which helps those offensive woes out in a big way. And with the Heat being a top 5 defensive team this season, I definitely wouldn't want to be one of the higher seeds facing the Heat in round 1. Obviously, having to face the Boston Celtics would be worst case scenario for the Heat in the first round, but if they get the 7 seed, then I'll say right now, I would favor them to win a matchup with the Milwaukee Bucks right now. The Bucks are coming into the postseason in terrible form. Giannis Antetokounmpo is banged up, just like he was last year when the Heat knocked them out in the first round, and there isn't a chance in the world that Doc Rivers outcoaches Eric Spoelstra. The play-in tournament has to go Miami's way first, but there is 100% a path for them to make another run this year. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from James, and he says that Jalen Brunson is now a better player than Steph Curry, and it's not even close. Things are changing in a big way in the year 2024. For the first time in a long time, we're starting to see a bit of a changing of the guard, with quite a few of the legends of the game beginning to look their age and slow down a bit. Steph Curry is still an elite player, of course, but we'd be lying to ourselves if we didn't admit that he's not the same Steph Curry that we've been watching for the last decade. There are a lot of issues with this current Warriors squad, so don't take this as me blaming Curry for the team's struggles, but there are definitely a lot of games where Curry just doesn't play as aggressively as he needs to, and has way more games this season where he's scored below 20 points than he's had in prior years. The comparison to Jalen Brunson is going to sound disrespectful when you first hear it, because Curry's one of the greatest to ever play the game, but in the year 2024, it's hard to argue he's been more effective. On the season, Curry is averaging 26 points and 5 assists per game, shooting the ball 45% from the field and 41% from 3. Solid production on the expected elite efficiency from him. Jalen Brunson, on the other hand, is scoring just shy of 29 points per game while dishing out about 7 assists on top of it, while shooting the ball 48% from the field and 40% from 3. He's outscoring Curry, he's dishing more assists than Curry, and he's nearly as efficient as Curry, while being the leader of a team that has dealt with countless injuries and still has a better record than the Warriors. Before we come to any conclusions, we do need to see what goes down in the postseason, because that can change some things pretty drastically. But if the Warriors bounce out in the play-in tournament, then the conversation definitely needs to be had. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Anish, and he says that the 76ers are the most underrated championship contender right now going into the playoffs. The Sixers season started with a bit of turmoil regarding James Harden, but after they took care of that, they settled in well and honestly looked ready to turn a new leaf. Bringing in Nick Nurse to be their new coach was paying off, Joel Embiid had somehow taken his game to yet another level, Tyrese Maxey stepped into a more prominent role left behind by James Harden and flourished, being named to his first All-Star game, and the role players around those guys spaced the floor and brought new life to the team. Then Joel Embiid hurt his knee and needed to get a procedure done on it. He missed about 2 months of games, and the Sixers were essentially written off. Pretty much for good reason too, might I add. When Embiid went down, the Sixers were in 3rd place in the East, not far behind the Bucks for 2nd, but now they're in a tight battle to try to make it out of the play-in tournament, so if they want to make a run, it's even more of an uphill climb for them. With their history of coming up short in the postseason, I completely understand why nobody is giving them a real chance, and if this were like most other years, I wouldn't like their chances either. But I look around the rest of the Eastern Conference, and pretty much every single other team besides Boston are also falling apart. The Bucks just saw Giannis get injured, so he might not be 100% healthy, and they've been incredibly mediocre in general since the All-Star break. The Cavaliers have been equally as mediocre since the All-Star break, with chemistry issues coming at the worst time. The Knicks lost Julius Randle for the year, and at full strength, the Sixers have looked like the biggest threat to the Celtics this season. In the games that Joel Embiid has been healthy for this year, the Sixers have a record of 31 wins and just 8 losses. They're a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense in the games that he's been out there for, and for once, they're coached well with good depth too. Their ability to contend completely comes down to how healthy Joel Embiid is, because if his knee is still bothering him, then they have no chance. But if he's good to go, they have as good of a shot as anybody to take on the Celtics. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.